The morning after our wedding, as we packed for our honeymoon, a knock on the door shattered our perfect world, bringing accusations of forbidden substances and an organized scheme that could steal decades of our lives. The air still hummed with the echoes of laughter and clinking glasses. My head was light, not just from the champagne, but from the sheer overwhelming joy of it all. Just 24 hours ago, I was standing at the altar, looking into Elena's eyes, promising her forever. She was stunning, a vision in white, and every time she smiled, my world felt perfectly aligned. Our wedding day had been everything we'd ever dreamed of. A whirlwind of friends, family, dancing until our feet ached, and a love so palpable it felt like it could light up the entire city. We'd finally collapsed into bed sometime past 3 a.m., completely exhausted, but utterly content. The morning after, the early autumn sun streamed through the bedroom window, dappling the floor with gold. Elena was still asleep beside me, her dark hair fanned across the pillow, a soft smile gracing her lips. I leaned in and kissed her forehead, inhaling the sweet scent of her skin, still faintly carrying the ghost of her wedding perfume. Today was it. Today we were leaving for our honeymoon. A week in Bali, an escape to paradise. Just us. No schedules, no worries, only the ocean and each other. Our passports were already in the carry-on, tickets confirmed, bags packed save for a few last-minute toiletries. We'd meticulously planned this trip for months, dreaming of the turquoise waters and the vibrant culture. The thought of it sent a thrill through me, our first grand adventure as husband and wife. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her, and went to make coffee. The aroma of freshly brewed beans soon filled our small apartment, mingling with the scent of leftover flowers from the reception. I found a half-eaten slice of wedding cake in the fridge and smiled, picturing Elena's delight when she woke. As I poured the coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my best man, Mark, asking if we'd made it to the airport yet. I chuckled and typed back, "Almost. Just enjoying a lazy morning with my wife." I sent the message, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. Everything felt so right, so perfect. This was the start of our new life, a clean slate, an open road stretching out before us, filled with promise and endless possibilities. Elena stirred, a sleepy murmur escaping her lips. "Coffee," she mumbled, her eyes still closed. "And cake," I replied, bringing a cup to her bedside. She giggled, pushing herself up, and took a grateful sip. "You're the best husband," she said, her eyes twinkling. We spent a blissful hour just lying there, talking about the wedding, reliving the funniest moments, and making last-minute plans for our flight. The taxi was due in less than an hour. I was in the bathroom, shaving, when I heard it. A persistent, heavy knocking at the front door. Not a polite knock, but one that echoed with urgency, almost menace. My heart gave a strange lurch. Who could it be? Our families knew we were leaving. Friends wouldn't drop by unannounced. I glanced at my watch. It was still early. Elena called out from the living room. "Who is it, honey?" "I don't know," I replied, a sudden chill running down my spine. "I'm going to check." I pulled on a t-shirt and walked to the door, peering through the peephole. My breath hitched. There were two men in dark suits, their faces grim, standing outside. Behind them I could make out a dark, unmarked van parked at the curb. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. They didn't look like local police, not exactly, but their demeanor was unmistakably official, authoritative. I opened the door a crack. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. One of the men held up a badge. "We need to speak with you, sir, and your wife." His voice was low, devoid of emotion. "It's urgent." "About what?" I asked, my grip tightening on the doorknob. The second man stepped forward, his eyes scanning past me into our apartment. "We have reason to believe you are involved in a large-scale operation involving illegal goods." My jaw dropped. "Illegal goods? What are you talking about? We're leaving for our honeymoon." The first man's eyes narrowed. "Sir, we have a warrant to search this property. We also have reason to believe you are connected to a known network that deals in forbidden substances and potentially even a significant attempt to break lives with grave criminal charges." My head reeled. Forbidden substances? Grave criminal charges? It was like a scene from a bad movie. This couldn't be happening. Not today. Not when our entire future was laid out before us, bright and sparkling. Elena appeared beside me, her eyes wide with alarm. "What's going on?" she whispered, clutching my arm. Before I could answer, the first man pushed the door open wider, and both men stepped inside, their eyes sweeping across our apartment. Their movements were swift, practiced, leaving no room for argument. "You have the right to remain silent," the first man began, his voice flat. "Anything you say can and will be used against you." I felt a cold dread settle deep in my stomach, chilling me to the bone. This wasn't just a mistake. This was something far more sinister. They weren't asking questions, they were making accusations. Accusations that carried the weight of years, of entire lives stolen. As the second man moved towards our bedroom, his gaze falling directly onto our neatly packed honeymoon luggage, a terrifying realization dawned on me. This wasn't about finding something in our apartment. This was about something they thought was with us. And the worst part, I had absolutely no idea what it could be. The first man turned back to me, his expression unyielding. "Mr. Protagonist's last name. We have intel that you and your wife are attempting to transport packages containing a prohibited substance hidden within your belongings, under the guise of your departure for a honeymoon. We believe you are part of an organized scheme." He paused, his gaze fixed on my face, searching for a reaction. "We also have information linking you to a larger group and a planned operation involving a significant number of these packages. This is a very serious matter, carrying the potential for decades of incarceration." My blood ran cold. Decades of incarceration. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was an ambush, designed to destroy everything we had just built. Elena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. I opened my mouth to protest, to deny, to scream, but no words came out. My mind was racing, trying to connect invisible dots, searching for any logical explanation, but finding none. Who would do this? Why? What was in our bags? The bags we'd packed with such excitement just hours ago. The bags that were meant to hold our hopes and dreams for a new life. Suddenly, the second man reappeared from our bedroom, holding up a small, tightly wrapped package he'd pulled from the bottom of Elena's carry-on. His eyes were triumphant, grim. "Found something. Found something." The words, flat and devoid of triumph, yet radiating an undeniable finality, echoed in the small apartment, shattering the last vestiges of our honeymoon dream. My gaze snapped to the package in the agent's hand, a small, tightly wrapped brick, no bigger than a deck of cards, innocent-looking yet radiating menace. Elena let out a choked cry, covering her mouth with both hands, her eyes fixed on the object as if it were a venomous snake. Her face, usually so full of light, was now a mask of pure terror. "That's not ours," I choked out, my voice hoarse and barely recognizable. "We've never seen that before in our lives." My mind was a whirlwind of frantic denial, desperately trying to construct a reality where this wasn't happening. The agents exchanged a look, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in their grim expressions. "Of course not, Mr. Protagonist's last name. They never have." The first agent, the one who'd spoken earlier, took the package from his colleague. He produced a small cutting tool, precisely sliced into the vacuum-sealed plastic, and carefully extracted a small amount of a fine, off-white powder onto a portable test kit. Within seconds, the reagent changed color, a stark, incriminating shade. "Preliminary test positive for a prohibited substance," he announced, his voice clinical as if reading a grocery list. "Class A offense. With the quantities implied by your travel plans, this carries the potential for decades of incarceration." He stared at me, his eyes cold and unwavering. "This isn't a mistake, Mr. Protagonist's last name. This is evidence." Elena was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "No, this is impossible," she sobbed. "Someone planted it. We would never." I pulled her close, trying to shield her, trying to somehow absorb the nightmare that was unfolding around us. My mind raced, trying to grasp onto any logical explanation. The only thing I could conclude was that we had been set up, expertly and maliciously. But by whom? And why? The second agent, meanwhile, had begun systematically going through our other luggage. Every item, every carefully folded shirt, every honeymoon souvenir was meticulously scrutinized. They weren't just searching. They were dissecting our lives piece by piece. The first agent, his demeanor unyielding, began to question me, his voice a low, steady drone. He asked about our itinerary, about our finances, about people I knew, about my work, subtly weaving in accusations, trying to trip me up. He mentioned the organized scheme again, painting a picture of me as a key player, a calculating criminal, using my wedding as a cover for a major operation. It was absurd, but in the face of their cold certainty and the physical evidence, my denials felt hollow, powerless. "Who are your contacts within this group, Mr. Protagonist's last name?" he pressed, leaning closer. "We know you've been under observation for some time. We have intelligence suggesting a deeper involvement than just a courier operation." Under observation? My stomach twisted. The thought sent a fresh wave of panic through me. Had our entire life together been a lie? Had I missed something? Was there something in my past, a forgotten connection, a casual acquaintance, that could have been twisted into this monstrous fabrication? I racked my brain, desperately searching for anything, any loose thread. But all I found was emptiness, a gaping void where their accusations should have connected with reality. Elena, still sobbing quietly, was now being questioned by the second agent. I could hear snippets of her terrified answers, her pleas of innocence. It tore at my heart. She had done nothing but love me, nothing but dream of our future. And now, because of me, or because of something planted in our shared future, she was facing an accusation that could destroy her life. "We need to know who supplied you, Mr. Protagonist's last name," the first agent continued, his voice hardening. "Cooperation now will go a long way in mitigating the severity of your situation. We understand these networks can be intimidating, but we assure you we can offer protection." "There is no network. There is no supplier," I practically shouted, my voice cracking. "This is a setup. You have the wrong people." He simply raised an eyebrow, a dismissive gesture. "That's what they all say, mister. Protagonist's last name." As the search continued, our small apartment, once filled with the warmth of our wedding day, now felt cold, violated. The dream of Bali, of turquoise waters and shared sunsets, evaporated with each passing second, replaced by a suffocating claustrophobia. They found nothing else incriminating in the bags, which, ironically, only seemed to solidify their conviction that this one package was the key, perfectly placed for our departure. Then the first agent paused, his gaze falling upon a framed photograph on our bedside table. It was an old photo taken years ago from my university days. A group of us, young and carefree, raising toasts at a graduation party. My arm was around Elena, who was then just a friend, but in the background, almost an afterthought, stood a figure I hadn't thought of in years. A guy named Anton, who I'd had a few classes with, a peripheral acquaintance I'd lost touch with almost immediately after graduation. He'd always been a bit shady, known for dealing in small-time, dubious schemes. I dismissed him from my mind, an irrelevant ghost from the past. But the agent's eyes had fixed on him. He picked up the photo, studying it intently. "Anton Semyonov," he murmured, his voice suddenly sharp, a dangerous edge to it. He looked up at me, his face grim, and the air in the room grew heavy, thick with unspoken dread. "Tell me, Mr. Protagonist's last name, what exactly is your relationship with Mr. Semyonov? Because he is a known associate of the group we're targeting, a key player, in fact, in the organized scheme that just had a package of prohibited substances show up in your honeymoon luggage." My heart hammered against my ribs. Anton, this couldn't be a coincidence. But how? Why? I hadn't seen him, spoken to him, or even thought about him in at least 5 years. My past, a past I thought was long buried and irrelevant, was suddenly being dragged into the present, entangled with a package I'd never seen, and an accusation that could steal our entire future. The agent's eyes bore into me, dissecting my shock, searching for the lie he was sure I was hiding. And that's when he reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a single, laminated card, holding it up. It wasn't a warrant, it was a photograph of me, standing in a bustling market street talking to Anton Semyonov. A photograph taken just 2 days before our wedding. The photograph was a punch to the gut, stealing my breath. Me, talking to Anton Semyonov just 2 days before my wedding. The bustling market street was instantly recognizable, a place I often went for fresh produce, but I had no memory of seeing Anton there, no memory of speaking to him. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the image with my own recollections, but it was a blank, a terrifying, absolute blank. Impossible, I whispered, the word barely audible. I don't remember this. I haven't seen Anton in years. The agent's face remained impassive. The surveillance footage says otherwise, Mr. Protagonist's last name. We have you on video. Brief interaction. A handover, perhaps? Or just a friendly chat before you decided to do your wedding day run? His voice was laced with a chilling certainty. Elena, seeing the photograph, let out another sob. This is insane. He wouldn't. We were so busy with the wedding. Indeed, the agent nodded, his gaze unwavering from me. A perfect cover. Who would suspect a groom days before his wedding, or a happy couple leaving for their honeymoon? My world was spinning. Anton, the market, the package, it all clicked into place with a horrifying, sickening logic. I wasn't involved. I was a patsy. But how? And when? My memory of the day, 2 days prior, was a blur of last-minute errands, picking up the suit, meeting with the caterer. It was a chaotic day, and I'd been utterly consumed by wedding preparations. I remember that day, I said, a sudden flicker of memory. I was at the market. I was stressed. I bumped into someone, yes. Just a quick glance, a polite apology. But it wasn't Anton. I would remember Anton. The agent merely scoffed. People forget things, Mr. Protagonist's last name, especially when they're trying to hide something. But it wasn't Anton. As I stared at the photo, something felt off. The angle, the slight blur. I scrutinized the background, the vendors, the people, and then a tiny detail, almost missed. A stall selling antique clocks, right behind me and Anton. I distinctly remembered that stall being on the other side of the market entrance that day. It had moved. But more importantly, the person in the photo, the me, was wearing a dark blue jacket. I distinctly remembered wearing my gray hoodie that day. A subtle, almost imperceptible detail, but it was enough to spark a desperate hope. Look closer, I pleaded, pointing at the photo. Look at the jacket. I wasn't wearing that. And look at the clock stall in the background. It was on the other side of the market that day. This photo, it's manipulated, or it's old, or it's not even me. The agent squinted at the photo, his expression hardening. Our intel suggests otherwise, but we'll take a closer look. He pocketed the photo, a skeptical glint in his eye. Regardless, we still have the package and a positive test result. They proceeded to search our entire apartment, methodically, leaving no corner unturned. Every book was removed from the shelves, every drawer emptied. The reality of our situation was setting in. We were facing decades in prison, our lives irrevocably destroyed, all based on a planted package and a suspicious photograph. I felt a cold anger building within me. Someone had meticulously planned this, using our most joyous occasion against us. Just as the agents were about to lead us away, handcuffed, for processing, there was another knock at the door. Not the urgent, menacing kind, but a tentative, polite series of taps. The agents exchanged glances. The first one opened the door. Standing outside was Mark, my best man, holding a small, brightly wrapped gift bag. He looked surprised to see the two grim-faced agents. "Hey, just dropping off a small wedding gift before you guys head off," Mark said, his voice cheerful, then faltered as he took in the scene. The overturned apartment, Elena's tear-streaked face, the agents. "What's going on?" The first agent held up a hand. "Official business. You may leave your package and depart, sir." Mark, however, was no fool. He saw the despair in our eyes, the tension in the room. "Is everything okay? Are they in some kind of trouble?" he asked, looking at me with concern. "They're investigating a serious matter involving forbidden substances and an organized scheme," the agent stated blandly, hoping to intimidate Mark. Mark's eyes widened. "Forbidden substances? Organized scheme? That's ridiculous. This is protagonist's name, and Elena. They're getting married, for crying out loud." He suddenly remembered something, his face lighting up with a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. "Wait, hold on, this can't be right. Anton Semyonov, you said?" The agent's head snapped up. "You know him?" "Know him? Sort of," Mark replied, a strange frown creasing his brow. "He approached me a few days ago, actually. Down at the market, he looked exactly like protagonist's name from behind. Same build, same hair, even a similar stride. He was wearing a dark blue jacket, I remember. He asked me about protagonist's name's wedding plans, what day he was leaving for the honeymoon if he was flying international. Said he was an old university acquaintance and wanted to surprise him with a gift." My blood ran cold. The dark blue jacket. The questions about our honeymoon, the market. It was a doppelganger, carefully deployed. Anton had found someone who bore a striking resemblance to me from behind, orchestrated a brief, staged interaction at the market, knowing surveillance would likely be present, and then had that package planted. But why? "I found it suspicious," Mark continued, talking quickly now. "Anton's always been a shady character, so I took a picture of him from afar, just in case, just as a precaution. I even sent it to protagonist's name a few minutes ago to warn him, but I guess he was too busy packing." My phone. I remembered seeing a notification for a text from Mark, but I hadn't opened it. I'd been too caught up in the frantic packing, the excitement of Bali. The agent, clearly intrigued by Mark's spontaneous testimony, eyed the gift bag in his hand. "What's in the bag, sir?" Mark opened it. Inside was a framed photo. Not of me and Anton, but a group photo from our university days, featuring Mark, me, and Anton, with a clear shot of Anton's face. Along with it, a small USB stick. "This is the picture I took of him at the market," Mark explained, holding up the USB. "It clearly shows him, not protagonist's name, wearing that blue jacket talking to someone." He handed the USB to the agent. I also recognized the clock stall in the background. It had moved that day, which I thought was odd. The agents exchanged another look, this one different, a glimmer of doubt, a crack in their granite certainty. They took the USB and the photo. The first agent, now openly scrutinizing the surveillance photo again, compared it to Mark's photo of Anton. The jacket was indeed identical, and a closer look at the face in the surveillance photo, though slightly blurry, now revealed subtle differences. A slightly narrower jawline, a different set to the eyes. The doppelganger. A different team from the internal check was called in. Mark's testimony, combined with his photographic evidence and my recollection about the hoodie and the clock stall, provided a crucial turning point. They took the surveillance photo for forensic analysis, and with the new information, the pieces of the puzzle began to rearrange themselves. The planted package, the staged encounter, the specific questions Anton had asked Mark. It was an elaborate setup, meticulously designed to frame me. Anton, it turned out, was a desperate man, deep in debt to the organized scheme, and had sought to clear his name by framing someone else for a major delivery, someone who had a perfect cover, a honeymoon. He knew I'd be distracted, preoccupied, and would make an ideal, unsuspecting target. Hours later, after what felt like an eternity of intense questioning, cross-referencing, and frantic investigations by the internal check team, the truth emerged. The forensic analysis confirmed that the person in the surveillance photo was indeed a look-alike, not me. The timeline of the clock stall's movement also validated my claim. Anton Semyonov was apprehended later that day, attempting to flee the country, with additional evidence connecting him to the organized scheme and confirming his role in framing us. He confessed to orchestrating the setup, driven by desperation and the threat of severe consequences from the group. Elena and I, emotionally drained but physically free, were finally cleared. The charges were dropped, and the agents, now much softer in their demeanor, offered their sincere apologies. We were still shaken, our dream honeymoon snatched away, but we were together, and our names were cleared. The sun was setting as we finally stepped out of our apartment building, hand in hand, blinking in the fading light. Our taxi, long since gone, was a distant memory. Our bags, thoroughly searched, were now just bags, no longer symbols of impending doom. Bali would have to wait. But as I looked at Elena, her hand warm in mine, a quiet strength settling back into her eyes, I knew we had faced down a nightmare and emerged stronger. Our forever had started with a terrifying storm, but we had weathered it together, and that, in its own way, was a honeymoon in itself.